Welcome to the Alcohol Minimalist podcast. I'm your host, Molly Watts. If you want to change your drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. This podcast explores the strategies I use to overcome a lifetime of family alcohol abuse, more than 30 years of anxiety and worry about my own drinking, and what felt like an unbreakable daily drinking habit. Becoming an alcohol minimalist means removing excess alcohol from your life so it doesn't remove you from life. It means being able to take alcohol or leave it without feeling deprived. It means to live peacefully, being able to enjoy a glass of wine without feeling guilty and without needing to finish the bottle. With science on our side, we'll shatter your past patterns and eliminate your excuses. Changing your relationship with alcohol is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Well, hello and welcome back to the Alcohol Minimalist podcast with me, your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from very hopeful Oregon. Hopeful, that's right. That is the adjective I am using for the weather forecast this week because it's a beautiful, balmy, going to be 70 degrees today, and tomorrow it's supposed to be like high 70s, and all week long, dry 70s, and only one day that looks going to be in the 60s and not even any rain. So I don't know what to think about that. Here it is still April, mid-April, and these are temperatures that we wouldn't typically see until the end of May, beginning of June. So I don't know. I'm going to go with hopeful. How are you doing? It is mid-month of Alcohol Awareness Month. And this episode that I am sharing with you today is something that I think is a conversation about awareness that maybe some of us are not even really, aware of in terms of its relationship to treating substance use disorders. This is a conversation that I've been waiting to have for quite a while. And we are going to be talking about psilocybin. And psilocybin therapy is actually something that has been legalized here in Oregon. And I am sharing a conversation I had with Ben Kramer. And Ben is a psilocybin facilitator here in Oregon. He's a licensed psilocybin facilitator. And so I wanted to share his information, share kind of what he's learned throughout his training and his background. And I think it's just an interesting thing to consider, especially if you are someone that's tried different ways of mitigating your emotions, and you might have tried different neuroregulator type medications. It's something that I was at least curious about, and I wanted to share this information. So in honor of alcohol awareness and increasing awareness around recovery, this is my conversation with Ben Kramer from Fundamental here in Portland, all about psilocybin. Have a great week. I'll see you next time. Hey, Ben, thank you so much for being here with me on the Alcohol Minimalist podcast. This is a conversation that has taken me for us a while to get together and have the conversation, but something certainly that I have been interested in sharing with my audience for a long time. So I'm very delighted to have you here and hopefully educate everyone a little bit more on psilocybin. So,
yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive in a little bit. And I would love to have you share first kind of your background is as a veteran, as a first responder. How did you come to be a psilocybin facilitator? And obviously that's because here in Oregon, you're in Oregon as well. And this is something that's legal here in Oregon. So which is super exciting, I think, for people like yourself or anybody that's really interested in this kind of science. But tell me how you got here.
Yeah, well, the science is actually how I got here. I remember I'm a little bit of a nerd and like to follow scientific studies, and seeing the Johns Hopkins research years ago when it came out was kind of like, why is nobody talking about this? It was so much more impactful than anything we had in mental health mainstream. And so as the laws kind of formed themselves here in Oregon, I was paying attention, knew I wanted to be involved, never had any inkling I would be involved to this extent. Yeah, after the Marine Corps, I started firefighting here at Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, and 7 years. Thought I was going to retire doing that. It's on the water rescue team, and happy. And then this came out, and the way life kind of throws things at you, for better or worse, I dove in head first. I like to say it was too important not to, and I fully believe that. And it's been evident to me that that I chose the right direction with the amount of people I've been able to help, and getting to kind of shape this brand new legal area. Is kind of the wild, wild west out here. And it's terrifying because there's nowhere to look to see how they've done it before. And that's also really exciting. So I got a scholarship from a nonprofit called Uphold Our Troops to become a licensed facilitator, because the VA would not pay for it. And got a full ride through Uphold Our Troops, became a licensed facilitator. Shortly after, got hired as a teacher and educator at the school that I trained at clinical cognitive facilitator training, and was teaching and facilitating, kind of two different hats. And then we decided to open up a service center here in Beaverton, not only so we could train our new facilitators in a more hands-on way within the legal system, but so we could kind of put our own spin on things. So I've had multiple hats. I have my facilitator hat, and I'm also an educator and assistant manager here at the Service Center Oregon Psychedelic Solutions.
Wow. Lots of happening
Yeah.
since this is because psilocybin just became legal in the beginning of 2024 or 23. So still barely 2 years.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff that has taken place. All right. So that's kind of how you got involved with psilocybin specifically. Now let's talk about what that means as being a psilocybin facilitator, what it is. I mean, because some people don't even know what we are talking about here, what that means, what it is. And then what in your personal background led you to want to, you know what I mean? Both the science, but was there any experience in your life that you thought, I really want to do this. I want to, experience it for yourself, not just bring it to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I hadn't experienced it for myself, I'm not sure I would have been as passionate about bringing it to other people. And I guess I'll start with, what is psilocybin first, right? Magic mushrooms. There's a certain strain that's allowed within the legal system here in Oregon, Psilocybe cubensis, which there are hundreds of varieties of, but that's the one we're allowed to use. And it's done in a very specific manner that the studies have kind of been based this way as well. But we found that when the proper preparation work is done beforehand, and even more importantly, the integration work afterwards, that a psilocybin journey can be extremely impactful for mental health in all different kinds of areas, whether that's PTSD, depression, anxiety. I've seen it be extremely beneficial for OCD, addiction, bipolar type 2. It's kind of one of those, it sounds too good to be true. And I do want to reiterate that it's not a magic pill, right? I cannot stress enough that the benefits come with the proper preparation beforehand, and like I said, the integration work afterwards. The thing that led me to it was initially I had a very close friend who was also a veteran, who, unbeknownst to me and everyone else, was in a dark place. He went home from work one day, stuck a gun in his mouth, and pulled the trigger. And uh, luckily, the bullet didn't fire for whatever reason. He actually still has it with a little indent on the back. And afterwards, he did a psilocybin journey and came back just a changed man in so many different ways. Um, but that was kind of my first, personal experience with seeing it.
Right.
Um, then my wife was able to get off of her antidepressants by microdosing psilocybin, which is taking small subperceptual doses over a longer period of time. Um, and it was a night and day difference than when she tried to get off without it. So it was um, kind of throwing me into the mix. And I am very fortunate, as after my time in the Marines and firefighting as well, I struggled with PTSD and depression and substance abuse to kind of self medicate. And I have amazing friends and family around here that pushed me through, but it was a long 5 year struggle and a lot of work. And eventually I did end up taking my own psilocybin journey, which was constructed exactly how we do it within the legal framework now, with a facilitator and the iMask and soundtrack, which I can get into in a second. But it was nothing less than life changing. And it's so difficult to try to convey what that experience is to someone who hasn't been there before. It's truly ineffable. And maybe one of the hardest parts of my job is to trying to get people to understand what it will be like. But it was huge for me in my ongoing healing process. And now I get to work with other people, giving them the same thing, which has been nothing short of amazing.
For myself, I agree with you. In terms of the science, I remember learning that this was something that was worked on at Johns Hopkins and was thinking, why do people not talk about this? Why is this not something that we're willing to explore? I think that the first answer to that usually comes back to, I think people are just genuinely scared of psychedelics and scared of magic mushrooms. And, and then we think back and there's the stories of the 70s and, people and acid and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
especially for myself, like, I feel like I'm somebody who's I'm pretty self-controlled. Like that's one of the things that has always been a struggle for me when I drink, if like I don't like feeling altered.
Mm.
And so tell me how that kind of fits in terms of like safety or losing control or feeling like, how do you talk to people about that? Because I'm sure I'm not the only person that's ever mentioned that with regards
No.
to taking a psilocybin journey.
Yeah. Well, I think it's twofold, right? Both those things you mentioned. The stigma around it is dramatic, and people, looking at it as a drug as opposed to how we view it as medicine, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and the losing control. And no one wants to lose control. That's the hardest part for most people. And one of my main jobs in preparing someone is getting them to a place where they are willing to surrender to the journey. And that's terrifying. I can't think of a scarier place to go than inside my own head. That is absolutely terrifying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And getting to a place where I was able to fully trust that it was going to be perfect for everyone every single time, exactly what they needed. And that doesn't make any sense. And I was able to finally have it make sense to me, right? Where I used to say that the mushrooms show you what you need to see, And I think it's much more accurate to say the mushrooms allow you to show yourself what you need to see. And uh, that being, psilocybin shuts down your prefrontal cortex, and that's your operating system, your
Right. Oh,
ego.
hey, I talk about the context. I mean, the prefrontal cortex all the time around here.
It's a
Like
big deal.
that's what I'm telling people. It's what I tell people to tap into
Yeah.
to change their relationship with alcohol. It's what we use to override that lower emotional center of the brain and to apply the thinking. It's the part that makes us human.
Mhm.
I mean, in all honesty, that larger prefrontal cortex is how the brain evolved. And so shutting it down sounds really terrifying to me.
And yes, and I think it is. It's their operating system. It's who you are. Um, and I think that, if we're dealing with trauma is not necessarily the thing that happened to somebody. It is how we manage or deal with it afterwards, right? And your prefrontal cortex or ego or whatever you want to call it does a great job of keeping you safe and keeping you alive. So much so that it can do it in ways that become no longer beneficial. And so getting to a place where you're willing, shut it down is pretty harsh, I think, but letting it take a break, right? I think is a better way to put it. And having the other subconscious parts of your brain get to speak up and say what they need to say that haven't been able to because of survival, whether that's past buried traumas or the way you're dealing with it now. Hypervigilance is a big deal with PTSD, and it's extremely hard to get out of. And shutting down that prefrontal cortex gets people out of fight or flight who've been living in it for years without even recognizing it. And once that gets to take a break and you get to kind of see everything that hasn't been seen or haven't been willing to look at, it can be extremely beneficial and it gives people a new lens to kind of see life through. Right. And I think there's two lanes that happen simultaneously with the psilocybin journey. There's, the more ethereal or the one we've been talking about, right, where your subconscious is speaking up, getting a new lens. Then there's the scientific one, right, where you're uh, completely rewiring and reattaching your neural network. And
Okay, so yeah, all right. This is exciting. I've read about that there's actual research on psilocybin facilitating neuroplasticity. So
yeah,
that's kind of what you're talking about. So this is real.
yes, yeah. During the actual psilocybin journey itself, if you look at a brain scan, normally you'll see like a little bit of colors lit up here and there, and then you see a brain scan on psilocybin. It looks like fireworks. Just everything is connected to everything. And for up to 3 months after the journey, your neuroplasticity is through the roof. To an extent that it hasn't been since we were children, and so able to start or stop new habits is huge in that time frame and kind of where the work starts after the journey. All right, because you can. I'm going to steal an analogy. I can't remember who said it, but the whole idea that neurons that fire together wire together, right? So
Right. Yeah.
kind of being like tracks on a ski slope. And the more you think a thought or perform an action, the more you ski that run, and those ruts get deeper and deeper until it's so deep. Once you're in it, it feels physically impossible to do anything else, right? Whether that's you know, habits or like the negative self-talk loop, right? Let's use that as an example. Once it starts, that neural pathway is so strong that you're just in it. And psilocybin is like a fresh coat of snow. So you can still feasibly ski that same track, right? But the work is recognizing that you don't have to anymore and you can choose a different path.
So you mentioned something, or you used the word, you've used it a couple of times, and you've talked about PTSD. You've mentioned trauma, and we can talk about big T, little T traumas, but I'm curious if this if going on a psilocybin journey is the exclusive audience for people who have experienced trauma, or is this, or do we think that it's big T trauma, or is it something where people that are, or are we of the belief that everyone has traumas in their lives and this can be beneficial? I'm curious about that. I don't know where, I mean, obviously it's not an inexpensive proposition. It's not something, is it something where people are really using it as a last resort kind of a technique, or how do you see it?
Well, I think that's how it's worked out for the most part. I work with a lot of people who come to me saying, I've tried everything else, nothing has worked. I've tried all the meds, all meditation, mindfulness, all the things, therapy for years, nothing has worked. This is my last ditch effort, right? And I think that is just kind of the circumstances that we're in now with the lack of education and about psilocybin and what it can do, because I think it could be an amazing frontline uh, tool. I'm obviously
Mhm.
biased, but I think it could be. And whether we're talking about, big T trauma, little T trauma, uh, I'm not sure it really matters, right? Like I said, it's
Mhm.
not necessarily what the trauma is; it's how it is affecting you and your life and your physical responses to things. Whether that's one large traumatic event that you can point your finger to, or a compounding smaller events over a long time that just build up. Um, it always seems to present itself very similar to me. I've worked with over 100 people now, and whether you're a combat veteran or someone that maybe had childhood trauma or just feel like you're stuck in your life, it always seems to boil down to not only like the central nervous system and its heightened response, but even with depression and anxiety and substance use, it always kind of boils down to worthiness. A sense of self worth is somehow at the root of almost everyone I've ever worked with, right? And so getting to a place where the phrase I like to use for people is getting to a place where they fully feel and believe that my self worth is not conditional, which is a tough place to
Mhm.
get to. I know when I started working towards that line felt absolutely disgusting to me because absolutely it's conditional. If I show up for my family, if I get my stuff done, and like then we can talk, right? But getting to a place where it's unconditional, um, this just has such a powerful way to break through to that. And I think a lot of people know, like cognitively understand, like, yeah, like I have a pretty good self worth. But there's a huge difference between like knowing what that is and feeling it.
Yeah, agreed.
Just a quick break to talk with you more about Sunnyside. Did you know that Sunnyside uses science to help you reach your goals by focusing on three scientifically proven superpowers that you have? Number one, the power of pre commitment. Each week, you set an intention for the week ahead that includes a tracking goal, a drink goal, and possibly a dry day goal. Number two, the power of conscious interference. You'll learn the habit of tracking each day as soon as you finish it, which creates a mindful pause before you start the next day. And number three, positivity. We know that this is a big step that can be tough at times, right? And that's why Sunnyside offers coaching through SMS and email to give you support, advice, and motivation. You can check out a free 15-day trial at www.sunnyside.co/Molly. That's www.sunnyside.co/Molly.
You mentioned your wife and her journey in terms of microdosing, and getting off of anxiety meds or depression meds. Can't remember what you said, one of the two. Um, that so typically a lot of times people that have a history of anxiety or depression, they typically are using some sort of medical intervention. Oftentimes, when we look at brain scans for people who have anxiety, depression, their brain scans do show that. You can see it. There's differences. And so what I'm getting at here is their neurochemistry is different, right? And I think that we know that people have familial genetic kind of tendencies to depression or anxiety. I'm wondering, in terms of being a frontline type of therapy for those kinds of, uses, how does that happen? How could we make that happen? Because it's not mainstream yet. And obviously it's not, I don't think it's covered by insurance. Is it?
No,
in those?
No, not yet.
Yeah. So, yeah. So how does that work? How would we get there to be like it so that it was more mainstream?
Well, that's kind of my main goal in life, right? Just educating, which is why it's so great that I get to be here talking with you and try to shout it from the rooftops as much as I can, but just educating. Because I think the more people that know it's an option, the better. Like this, it's not for everyone. But I think people need to know it's an option. And I worked with plenty of people who have come to me, my doctor wants to put me on SSRIs, antidepressants. I really don't want to be on medication, so I'm going to come try this first, right? And again, my biases are going to show here, but I think that SSRIs are just Band-Aids for bullet holes, right? And they're handed out like candy. And I think there's plenty of people who could benefit from short-term use, right? Getting them out of the hole. But I don't think they were ever meant to be a long-term, lifelong thing. And so I think it's important to kind of weigh your options, right? And where you're at. Like maybe SSRIs are the right option for a few months and then weaning off and seeing where you're at. Like I'm, not a doctor. I'm never going to tell someone what to do with their medication. But I have seen plenty of people use one large dose psilocybin journey and never feel the need to ever get back on their SSRIs or start them in the first place. And I think that speaks to the neuroplasticity and being able to utilize that for your benefit.
Yeah. So that was I'm so glad you said that way, because again, my question right there was, my next question was going to be, if this is so great, if this psilocybin journey is so great, why would we only do it once? Why are we not doing it, every year? Why is it? So it sounds though, like you said, it was life changing. So tell me about that. What is there? But it sounds like it's maybe the integration part and the neuroplasticity that you just kind of like you said, you kind of just become somebody different.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually a huge fear of some people, becoming someone different, right? But
or your mindset is, maybe not. I'm just seeing your mindset shifts. Like you're like, instead of thinking that everything's impossible, you're suddenly like, okay, things are possible.
Yeah, and that shift is huge. Hope is a powerful thing,
right?
And that shift is massive. But to kind of speak to your, why wouldn't you do this once a year or once? And I think that that's really how we're kind of, conditioned in the Western world to think about medicine is like it's something you have to re-up on, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it more than once. Anybody that I've worked with multiple times have been 6, 9 months, a year apart, and it's never, they don't come back because it's worn off and they need to re-up on it. They come back because they've fully integrated that journey and they're ready to get to the next layer.
Okay. So the answer is you can do it more than once. And it's just like up to you to decide if it's kind of like, like you've become a different, the next best version of yourself. And now you want to become another, a new version of yourself or whatever the next, and go to the next level. I like that exploration. So talk to me, would you please, about what it looks like if I decide to do a psilocybin journey, the pre-work, the actual journey, and the integration. Just walk me through that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first step in the process is finding the right facilitator for you, right? I think it's the most important part because they're going to be doing the prep work with you. They're going to be there in the room with you during your journey for the entire time, and then the integration afterwards, right? So finding somebody that resonates with you and you trust is paramount. Once you determine that, you and your facilitator will do a preparation and orientation session, which can be done over Zoom or in person. It takes about an hour and a half to get through all of the required state paperwork, and then to dive into the more important things like intentions, desired outcomes, history, things like that. After that, legally, you can schedule your administration session. And I say legally because that is the bare minimum. And I don't like to put a number on how many preparation sessions somebody might need to feel as ready as possible, right? Everyone's different. I think with most of my clients, it's 2 to 3 prep sessions over a period of time. Once they are ready, scheduling the administration session. And that's the only time you need to physically be like here at the service center. Usually starts around 9:30 in the morning. You'll meet here at the service center. You meet your facilitator. They'll have one of the rooms set up with pillows, blankets, eye mask. The client will purchase the psilocybin from the service center and then go back to one of the rooms and get settled. When they're ready, the service center will bring back the psilocybin. It's every service center is a little different. Here we grind it up and put it into a tea. It's at a specific temperature. The water is to extract the psilocybin, and we put there's some citric acid in it as well because it starts converting the psilocybin into psilocin, which is the actual psychedelic compound. So it takes kind of the load off your body having to do that, and causes much less nausea than just eating it.
Not okay. Nausea. Is that a thing? Is that can be problematic?
No, not problematic, but fairly common if you just eat the mushrooms. Fairly common for people to get nauseous. Not nearly as common for someone to purge. That's pretty rare. And with the tea, it almost never happens. If they get nauseous, it's for a minute or two, and it'll pass. Once the tea's finished, they'll lay back, put on the eye mask, and start the playlist or soundtrack. And those are two pieces that might sound odd to people, right? Like you're laying in this room with your facilitator with an eye mask on, and listening to a playlist. And the soundtracks are very specifically designed for the psilocybin journey itself. They have minimal English words in it, and they're kind of designed to follow the curve of the journey, and in a way that it's not distracting, but it just kind of pushes you along. And the eye mask is crucial for doing this type of work. I was really against the idea of doing psilocybin indoors with an eye mask. Nonetheless, when I was in training, it sounded like blasphemy to me to do it this way, until I tried it. And the eye mask is the thing. I think our ego, for lack of a better term, is really good at pulling the longest levers it can to keep you from looking at the thing that needs to be looked at, right? And one of those is, look at the pretty colors out here. Don't go in. And the eye mask just forces you to go in, and it's extremely powerful. So the journey itself, different amount of times for different doses. There's different legal minimum amount of time for each dose. A more significant journey is 35 milligrams to 50 milligrams of psilocybin. And that's, I think for years and years, we've always weighed the dried fruiting bodies, right? The dried mushrooms, and kind of guessed an average dose. And our psilocybin is grown in a licensed manufacturer and then tested at a licensed lab for the psilocybin content itself. So we can be really specific and accurate on the dosing. So 35 to 50 milligrams is about a 6-hour journey. It's about how long it takes.
6 hours.
6 hours.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no small thing. It takes about 6 hours. When it's over and the facilitator and you both feel like you're safe and comfortable to leave, you will follow a ride plan home, which is part of the prep paperwork. But whether that's a friend or family picking you up or an Uber, just can't be driving. And the next day, your facilitator will reach out, check in on you, and start setting up the integration process. That process looks extremely different for everybody. It's very person specific.
And so but give me an example. When you say like, is it 3 weeks? Is it 2 days? Is it, you're.
Well, I would hate to put a time frame on it.
Okay.
Right. I think it's ongoing. Right. The work that you do with your facilitator for the integration is really about tools and resources, right? Having tools and resources to really make the things gained in the journey tangible. I know for myself, I take detailed timestamped notes for the person to take home with them after their journey. And those have been extremely helpful to be able to highlight and kind of get back to the important things that they said or did. Could even be, breathing got intense here. And you look at the timestamp and you're able to match it up to the music that was playing at the time and really reconnect with what was happening. A lot of the times I'm able to see bigger patterns for people. Example, for firefighters especially, it seems to be the case, veterans as well, but firefighters always have a huge somatic component to their journeys. And so, going through somatic practices or resources so that they can continue to pull on that thread would just be one example.
This is really, really amazing. It's really, really interesting work, period. So I have to ask this question because I feel like I'm curious. I'm sure other people are. Does this ever go awry? Does it ever go badly? Do people have bad trips, experiences, journeys?
The bad trip.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, going back to those, our legacy of psychedelics, it's
super valid question, and a big concern for a lot of people, right? The bad trip.
Right.
I truly, fully believe that there is no such thing as a bad trip in this setting. And a lot of that has to do with the preparation beforehand. And a lot of that has to do with, there may be parts of the journey that are difficult, but difficult is not bad. And making sure that you have the tools to move through the difficult portions of your journey so you don't get stuck in that loop, which is the quote unquote normal bad trip. If you avoid looking at where it's taking you or try to steer the journey in any way, you just kind of start looping until you surrender to it. And I think it really boils down to, trying to make it as simple as possible for people. If you surrender to the experience, allow whatever comes up to come up, and meet everything with curiosity, you'll move right through it. And the difficult ones are usually the most beneficial, honestly.
Okay. I don't know if you can answer this if it's too specific, but are there any mindset shifts or cognitive insights that people you've seen people experience that tend to have like the longest lasting impact, or that you see happening? Maybe a better way of phrasing that would be that you see happening with fair amount of repetition.
Yes, I think that the ability to be present is
Okay.
fairly common. Um, Also, the feeling of uh, connectedness, right, to
Mm-hmm.
yourself and your world. But that ability to be present is huge for so many people. It was huge for me, right? To go from worrying about your to-do list and what's next, and to a place of I'm not sure how to put this other than just being and
Mm-hmm.
being okay and enjoying that is massive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we could probably, and you'll come back on again, Ben, and we'll have another conversation about this because there's so much to unpack about this, especially as things continue to shift and change with regards to regulation in other places, not just Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you could help more people understand just one thing about psilocybin's potential, what would that be?
That's a big question. If I could have them learn one thing about it, I think it would truly, this is kind of a boring answer, but truly be that it is an option. And
Right?
not only is it an option, but, we're so used to anything mental health, dealing with the symptoms. And this is an option that gets to the root of the problem, thus dealing with the symptoms that way, as opposed to just, like I said, band-aids for bullet holes.
Right. I was gonna say it for you. Not a band-aid for a bullet hole, but
Yeah.
actually getting to some of these you know, core beliefs and core stories that we unconsciously carry around with us. And I have to believe there's room in the future for this, to be something that is frontline therapy for people in all phases of mental health journey, and not just big T, not little t trauma, but anyone that, and not in that last resort mechanism, right? But
Right.
something that people really see as, okay, this might be the thing that I want to try first. And so it's exciting. And I appreciate you and your willingness to share not only your own journey and how and what you did to get to what you're doing, but the fact that you are passionate about it and trying to change the narrative around psilocybin. And I think it's really important work, and I'm super glad that you and I finally got this on the calendar and are sharing it with the audience here in Oregon. If people are, I mean, I have listeners all over the world. So do you have a good recommendation for resource on where if someone's, I mean, I really don't want to just say Google psilocybin, near me. Like, is there
Yeah.
a overarching spot where people might find good, valuable information?
The Oregon Health Authority has their psilocybin kind of portion of their website.
Mhm.
Um, there is no good super overarching way to do it. Anyone and everyone is more than welcome to reach out to me, and I'll point them in the right direction. Um,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, we do have people coming from all over the world to do
Really?
it in this way. A lot of them from out of state, but yeah, from all different kinds of countries, because it's not a common thing to find it done, in a way that's fully backed by science and so meticulous.
Well, there you have it, folks. I'm always telling you, you got to come visit Oregon. Now, here's just another reason you might want to come. You might want to come and experience the psilocybin journey on the way too. Well, Ben Kramer, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your work. Where can people learn more about your program here in Oregon? And then also if they have questions where they might connect with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's it's an honor to be here. They can find our service center website, OregonPsychedelicSolutions.com. My website is fundamentalpdx.com. And my number's on there, my email's on there. They're more than welcome to reach out with any questions.
Fantastic. I love it. I will link it all in the show notes, folks. And, I encourage you to have an open mind and learn about this. And whether it's here in Oregon or, wherever you are, if this is something that sounds like might be beneficial for you, I really want to encourage you to check it out. And Ben might be a great place to start to have a conversation. So
thank you, Molly.
Thanks again for being here. Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Minimalist podcast. Take something you learned from this week's episode and put it into action. Changing your drinking habits and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol is 100% possible. You can stop worrying, stop feeling guilty about overdrinking, and become someone who desires alcohol less. I work with people in 2 different ways, and you can learn about them over at my website. Go to www.mollywatts.com/workwithme or reach out to me directly. Shoot me an email, molly@mollywatts.com. We'll jump on a call and decide what might work best for you. This podcast is really just the beginning of our conversation. Let's keep it going. If there's one thing I know, it's that change is way easier when you stop trying to do it alone.